Hello, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of It's Your City, sponsored by Indie Film America. They're holding auditions for 3 films right here in Carson City on June 11th and 12th. Call the number on your screen for your audition time. For more information about the films, please visit Indie Film America on Facebook. This week's guest is Karla Navarro from the Nevada Division of Child and Family Services. Welcome, Karla.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is an important time of year for DCFS. You guys are having a number of really great observances that are happening here in town over this past month of April and coming up for the duration of May. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on.
Okay. So every spring we celebrate April and May by honoring, April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and then May is National Foster Care Month. We also celebrate National Child Mental Health Awareness Day in May, which this year falls on May 5th.
All right. So this week.
Yes.
All right. And DCFS provides a number of services for kids to support these endeavors. Working with home placements in the foster care system, working with making sure that kids have the resources that they need to thrive. Let's back up for a minute and talk about what happened last month in April, because that was a very visible display downtown in our community, the pinwheels. What was that all about?
Yes. So every year, Prevent Child Abuse Nevada, they order pinwheels for us, and then they come up to the Capitol and we plant pinwheels in observance of child abuse prevention. It brings awareness, and it's a happy reminder of, children deserve to be happy. They deserve happy childhoods. So the pinwheels serve as a happy reminder to everyone in the community that even though it's Child Abuse Prevention Month, we all have the duty to help and ensure that our children are safe in their homes and in our community. And so it serves as that reminder for everyone.
Right, and it's a very visible thing. I know that many people who are driving through downtown Carson see those pinwheels there. They're sparkly, they catch a lot of light, exactly. And hopefully that serves as a reminder. And for people who maybe weren't aware of why the pinwheels were out, now they'll know.
Yes, definitely. I know the sign is up there, and they're up for about a week. And so we try to ensure that we do let the community know what the pinwheels are about. But sometimes people don't always hear about it, and so it is kind of nice that we get to speak on it in these types of situations.
Right, and more importantly, really, than getting the message out about the pinwheels themselves, is getting the message out about preventing child abuse.
Definitely.
Talk a little bit about child abuse in Nevada. What it is exactly that DCFS does to help support kids who might be in abusive situations.
So DCFS, we oversee a large range of what we can do to help communities, families, and children. DCFS covers the program areas of child welfare. We also oversee children's mental health, as well as children involved or teens involved in the juvenile justice system. The biggest issue with child abuse prevention is, of course, our child protective services, as well as the children and youth who are involved in our foster care system. If you see a child who you think is being abused or neglected, it takes a village to help, raise children. So we all have to ensure that we're keeping the children safe and make sure that we report these type of situations when you do see something. So if anyone in the community ever has any concerns about children in their neighborhoods or children in their own families, or anyone that they see that they feel is being harmed, abused, or neglected, please feel free to call local law enforcement, or you can call the number on the screen as well to report it in the rural areas.
All right. Now, some people might not have a good idea of what constitutes child abuse. Right. I think some people grow up with in situations that they themselves may have been the victim of abuse, and now that's sort of being perpetuated, either physical violence or mental abuse, and sometimes that's hard to recognize. What should people look for?
Definitely. Like you mentioned, the signs are really hard to recognize. And, if you feel that a child looks like they have mysterious bruising or just injuries that don't seem like they were caused by bumping into something or
Right.
Something suspicious, as well as if you have any suspicions of possible sexual abuse, neglect. If a child is unkempt, maybe they've been wearing the same outfit for 3 days. Those could be indicators to child abuse and neglect. It's not always a positive that yes, something is occurring in that household, but if you call it in, our local DCFS office will go out, investigate the report, and even if it serves as coming in to help the family find resources, maybe they're struggling financially, or the parents are stressed out or something, and they just don't have time to run down to the laundromat and get the children's clothes cleaned. It can serve as a referral to resources for the family as well to prevent a child from coming into foster care too.
Even if that child isn't being abused, sometimes there are families who just need a little extra help. Kids often have bruises and things anyway. That's part of being a kid. They wreck their bike, or they trip and fall while they're playing outside. What's a key indicator that those bruises are something that we should be concerned about and not just a normal part of being a kid?
Just, maybe having constant bruising, or bruising where it can be easily hidden through wearing clothing, things like on the torso, or, maybe the child is lifting up their arm one day and you can kind of see something below the shirt or something on their rib cage. Just kind of mysterious things that you can, kind of question on whether or not that was caused by kids at play, or maybe it's something more serious.
All right, and everyone should be on the lookout for that. Some people, of course, teachers, school district staff, those types of folks are mandatory reporters of child abuse. And so when they see something, they say something, but anybody in the community is able to report.
Yes, definitely.
You don't have to be affiliated with a school or the medical establishment or anything like that. Anybody who is worried about a kid, better to call than to let a kid suffer in silence.
Right, definitely. Yes. Especially in those seasons when a child doesn't have, if they're in school, the teachers are mandated reporters. And so we have more eyes on the children. So summertime, during winter breaks, things like that, it does really serve the community a huge benefit to be able to protect those children if they are kind of aware and learn to make those reports as well.
Now, we don't like it when any kids are being abused. It's always a terrible situation. In the best of cases, that gets resolved. In some cases, though, that's not possible, and the kids have to be removed from their homes. That's what kind of is coming up in May. It's foster care month.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the foster care system, and then let's introduce today's other guest.
Okay. So foster care in Nevada, we average about approximately between 4,500 to 5,000 statewide children and youth in our foster care system. This could be children who are working with our CPS offices locally, who may not have been removed from their home. We are working with the families, or children who do need to come into the foster care system and go into a foster care placement. We are always in high demand of homes throughout the state. And nationally, foster homes are necessary always. So, it's really important that if you know of someone, even if you yourself don't feel that you could be a foster parent, if you know of someone who would be a good fit, always refer them to our office. And Lori Nichols, who is our foster care recruitment person here in the rural areas, she can walk through the process and let people know what they need to do in order to become a live foster parent here in Nevada.
And we're going to talk with Lori here in just a second, right after the break. Karla, thank you so much for being here with us today and letting our community know number one, how to help protect children, and for sharing with us some of the important work that goes on at DCFS. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Courtney.
Hello and welcome back to It's Your City. I'm your host, Cortney Bloomer. In the first half of the show, we had Karla Navarro from the Division of Child and Family Services, and now we're back with our foster family coordinator. Foster home recruitment is an important thing, and you're going to tell us all about it today.
Yes, I am. I am a foster care recruiter. I recruit for 15 counties in Nevada, which is all the counties basically in Nevada except for Clark and Washoe counties. So I'm stretched pretty thin between all those counties. So when people call and have questions about the foster care program, I'm the one that they get directed to. When I get people on the phone, they get a live person and we talk through the process. I give them each step that it takes to get licensed. And then, we talk about the pros and the cons of foster care licensing, what types of foster care people can get involved in or be licensed for. And then we just go from there, and they really have to determine for themselves if it's a good fit for them.
Right. Now you mentioned licensure and there being several different types of foster care situations. Mm-hmm. Explain a little bit to the audience about what some of those are so that they might have a little better idea of, is this something that they would be interested in?
Okay. Well, most people think, okay, foster care, it's 24/7, and typically it is. I mean, we want families that are going to want to be licensed from 0 to 18, all different types of children that come into care. But realistically, we want our foster families to be comfortable with what they sign up for. So there's different types of foster care. There's respite care, which is for when the other foster families go out of town or they need a break, or maybe they have to leave the state in an emergency and can't take the kids with them. Those types of situations do require respite caregivers, and it's such a blessing to our foster families to have them available, so we have an easy, smooth transition, and then once they get back home, the kids go back to the regular foster home. We have a need for short-term care, emergency shelter care, long-term care, and we even have a need for families that want to adopt through the system. So there's a lot of different ways that you can set up your license in terms of what works best for you.
Now talk a little bit about that licensing process, because there is a fairly extensive process that people have to go through to be able to be foster parents.
Right. The process is pretty extensive, and certainly that's why I'm on the phone a lot with folks, because it can take a lot of time to answer questions and go through that. We start the process out by doing a short interview with you don't have to have both people if it's a couple on the phone, but just to do a short interview to find out, what type of care they want to provide, where they live in Nevada, all that demographic information. And then immediately after that, what I do is send them their first packet, which is the pre-screen packet, and that's basically all their background check paperwork. And then we get them in training. And the training is 27 hours of the PRIDE curriculum that we require. After the training has been completed, they get their application, and then once they complete that application and turn it in, that's what's going to initiate the home study process. So it's kind of a daunting thing to ask people to do, but there's a reason for why we have to do what we do. I mean,
Absolutely.
First of all, we're making sure that kids are being placed in safe homes. And second of all, it's trying to figure out what children would go best in certain types of homes, because everybody has different strengths, experiences, tools in their tool belt, so to speak, that they can offer a child. And we want to match children. We don't just want to find the closest available foster home. And that's really that's reality for us right now. But the idea is to have foster homes that meet children's needs to the
that are a good fit.
Right.
Now, tell us a little bit about, without violating confidentiality, of course, tell us a little bit about some of the kids in the foster system, just a general idea. I think a lot of people sort of have a negative idea about foster kids, and that's just not the case.
This is probably one of the most challenging things to face as a foster care recruiter are the stereotypes. Stereotypes first of the foster children and what foster children look like, or what people perceive them to be. And then it's actually stereotypes of foster parents, that foster parents are just doing it for the money and, for these reasons. I mean, I don't think 94 cents an hour is really enough to be doing anything for that kind of money, especially what we ask our foster parents to do. So that, to me, I dismiss that. So yeah, I mean, it is very, it's very difficult what we ask foster families to do. And for foster children, I know my children go to local schools here and they know what I do, and they're like, Mom, how would I know what a foster child looks? How would I know if one of my friends was a foster child? Of course, I wouldn't tell them. But it's like, honey, you wouldn't know some of these kids had been through what they'd been through. I mean, these kids are vibrant, amazing. They do well in school. I mean, they're just like yours and mine. They're no different, except they have experienced extraordinary circumstances. And for that, they need extraordinary care. And so really, you can be at the park with your kids, you could be at the library, you could be at a restaurant. I mean, you would never know that kids were sitting next to you
are foster children.
had experienced the type of trauma that they had. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. Now, yeah, there are kids out there that do have higher needs. And typically those kids we have to meet their needs by placing them in a higher level type of care. But yeah, I talk to people all day long about the fact that these kids are normal, amazing kids. They're processing trauma, and they're very resilient.
They need support, just like any kid.
Yep, absolutely. And the community, all communities in rural Nevada, I mean, we really need to step up and provide that support, because if people don't know that there's a need, the need will never get filled.
Right, and you work primarily with the rural communities, as you mentioned, everywhere except Clark and Washoe. So talk a little bit about your experience in your position. Do you have an easier time, for example, finding a family here in Carson City than you would have in Nye County? What kinds of things do you have to do if you have kids out in Churchill County or something and no families out in that area?
Well, oddly enough, Carson City is one of the more difficult places that I recruit for. It is one of the most populated areas. It is the most populated. But for some reason, it is very difficult to recruit foster parents here. And I'm not quite sure why. We do have probably more children that come into care just because we are more populated. But in terms of my other areas, you brought up Nye County. Nye County, we actually have more foster families, I believe, in Nye County than we do in Carson. I mean, The last check I did, I think we have 8 foster homes that are licensed specifically for, like they're on our vacancy, or they're on our list to call for emergency placement. I think I counted 8 here in just specifically Carson City, and I think we had 2 beds available, which, if you think about it, well, okay, you've got 2 beds available. They're in separate foster homes, and they both accept different age range children. So if we have a sibling group that comes into care right now, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to look at that vacancy list and say, we can't split these kids up. We're going to have to send them to another foster home in another community. And to these kids, that is like moving out of the country.
It is. They're moving out of their school.
Right.
They're moving away from their friends. So it's a very difficult situation for the kids when they have to move. And that, of course, is why recruiting families is so important.
Right.
So one more time, let people know what they need to do if they want to initiate that process, if they want to learn more about being a foster parent.
Well, first, I always recommend that people call me if they have questions. People sometimes have certain experiences or situations, or maybe they had something on their arrest history like 20 years ago that maybe prevented them from moving forward. Just call and ask. I mean, every conversation we have is completely confidential. I mean, people can just ask, and I can explain to them if their situation is, if there would be a disqualifier or not. Most often it's the big picture. It's kind of like a 1,000-piece puzzle that the licensing worker is putting together to see if this is a good fit for our program and a good fit for our kids that come into care. I encourage your viewers to call me, and my local number here in Carson City is 775-684-1967. If your viewers are outside of the area in rural Nevada, that have to call long distance, I have a toll-free number, and that number is 888-423-2659. And both of those numbers come straight to my desk.
And those numbers are on your screen. So copy those numbers down. Give Lori Nichols a call. Let her know if you are interested in being a foster parent. Lori, thanks so much for coming and sharing with us today and letting us hear about the process. It's such an important service, really a labor of love that these families do to provide the support and care that these kids need. And thank you for coordinating that. And thank you to all of you for joining us for this week's edition of It's Your City. I'm your host, Cortney Bloomer. If you're interested in sponsoring a future episode of It's Your City, please contact Darla at the address shown on your screen. I'm Cortney, and we'll see you next week.